So when it comes to PRS, there's obviously a lot of calibers to choose, and if you're new to getting into this long-range precision game, you may be enticed to getting some of the what I consider the mid-length style 6mm cartridges. Now, in this video is going to be primarily an opinion based off my experience building rifles for the last 3 years. So stay tuned. We'll go over some details and give you guys some suggestions, maybe some opinions, and some food for thought. Alright, good old trusty Remington 700. Let's see what this one does. So, 3.4 mils is the call, 710 yards. Yep. So I wanted to emphasize that this video is not about which cartridge outperforms each other. All of these cartridges here are coherently accurate and they get the job done. It's all about what you can get a hold of as far as components and get you out in the range practicing, because it doesn't matter what cartridge you choose if the rifle sits behind a 100-yard line trying to do load development, or perhaps sitting inside the safe because you can't find components. That's not going to help you win a match. What's going to help you win a match is practice and obviously a component availability. Now there's caveats to every single one of these cartridges. It's about basically picking one that you're able to deal with. In fact, each one of these cartridges will shoot basically the same thing. It doesn't matter if it's a 105 or 109 grain bullet doing 2,900 feet a second or 2850. It doesn't matter if you shot it out of a 6 ARC, you know, BR, GT, whatever. If it's doing that velocity, I can give you your dope. Alright, loading up the 6mm Creedmoor. I'm using Peterson brass. Now this is small rifle prime brass with CCI 41 primers that are stuffed in here. The CCI 41 is basically the 450 primer, but in a harder cup, considered a military primer. Just what I could get a hold of, and I've had really good performance of it with that primer. So using the Lyman brass smith. Now this is loaded up with Varget. Now it does kind of cut powder a little bit, so we're going to hand trickle this thing up. It's going to get an initial dump charge, and then we'll go ahead and then trickle it up to 35 grains. We'll go ahead and load up about 25 rounds, head back out there and see what kind of performance we get downrange. But let's go ahead and speed through this. Now this is my machinist block. I do have a K&M, or 21st century, sorry, not K&M, 21st century bullet seeking die we'll use in a little bit. But we'll use this cheap $8 Wowee scale. That's what I use quite often. You'd be surprised, a little $8 scale produces the type of accuracy that I get along with the low SDs. So 35.1, about a tenth off. Oop, we'll just take a few grains out of here. So 42.3, and we'll just trickle up to 4 or 35 grains. There you go. So let's speed through this process, and after that we'll get to seating the bullet. So once these things are all trickled up, what I end up doing now is kind of setting a bullet on top. That tells me if I ever have to walk away that there's actual powder inside these cases. On top of that, keeps bugs and other powder and stuff from contaminating the inside of this thing. So in case I get called for work, or the wife calls me or something, or the kids are bugging, I end up, at least I could say, hey, I got a good stopping point here, and I know that these loads are safe still. Never really want to keep your cases wide open like this unless you're going to go ahead and reload, especially if you're in a garage. Dust and stuff flies around, obviously. Bugs and stuff will fly in there. And have your nice, well ventilated room, that's controlled environment. Obviously that ain't too much of a factor, but I'm inside this shed. So using the 21st century arbor press, and this is an L.E. Wilson die. One of the things that I pay attention to is this bullet seating pressure here. I like to be around 30 psi to 60. Try not to exceed past 60 if I can. If I have anything past 60, I tend to pretty much mark that case or something just to see if it will cause a flyer. So everything's about 45 psi here, seating pressure. Sometimes you get a burr, you can feel it when you're seating. Oh, pretty quick with this machine. Alright, all 25 loaded up. I'll check the case overall length here just to verify. I do use case base CO guide. I just rough measurement. I'm pretty confident with that bullet seating die. You'll see it's 2.800. Wow, right off the gate, that last shot it did pull a little high, but man, you guys can see the SDs. 3.6, average velocity 29.54, 26-inch barrel. Let's go check out those groups. That was a very soft shooting round. I mean, super soft compared to the other loads that I do, but last shot was up here. I did pull that one just a little bit, I felt like it. But all four in there. That's a sub quarter-inch group. Right off the get-gat. Okay, so here's the last 5-shot group with 36 grains. And in fact, this is kind of correlating with what I typically see with a quality barrel and quality rifle. Typically what I do for load development is find the max charge. And for me, 36 grains will be the max charge for this rifle, having that double click up top. And typically what I see is a node. The accuracy node is typically 1 grain before max. So this being 36 grains, this is where I'm going to say is max charge. I will shoot another 5 shots, just about half a grain more just to confirm. The node for this rifle is 1 grain less, which is 35, which was the first 5-shot groups we did here, including the cold bore. So this rifle is definitely liking that 35 grain load with Varget. I'm going to stick to that, and you can see that it's still holding about a half grain node. This was 35.5 grains. We did have one flyer up here, but it's still holding about a half-inch group. So the node is going to be pretty tight. I mean, or basically very wide, so to say. So I could plus or minus 2 to 3/10 of a grain and still hold his accuracy. Low SDs and velocity only increases about 15. So that's a pretty good load. I'd say that 35 grains would be what I would stick with. The one thing I'm going to do now is to shoot my typical Hodgdon 4350 load, which is 40.8 grains. Same bullet, same case, same overall length, just different powder. And see how that compares as far as recoil as well as group size. So when folks are referring to the barrel life of a cartridge, a lot of folks kind of correlate or basically reference velocity, as in basically the faster the bullet goes, the less barrel life you have, which is not 100% true. What kills barrel life is heat. And even though heat does correlate with velocity, as basically the barrel itself heats up a lot faster on a faster shooting bullet versus something that's slower. But in fact, what it is, like I said, the heat. If someone was to take basically 1 shot or 1 or 2 shots, maybe 3, and let the barrel cool down, you'll actually prolong the barrel life of the barrel, regardless of the velocity. I mean, these things can be screaming 3,600 feet a second, but if you're just an average shooter that takes 1 or 2 shots, that's not really going to damage the barrel as much as somebody shooting 2,890 feet a second with 10-15 rounds down bore within the first minute and a half. So this cartridge, obviously the 6mm Creedmoor, is known for barrel life of around 2,000 rounds. I've seen some folks get over 2,500, but usually they yank the barrel. due to it kind of producing just over half MOA, or around 3/4, a couple flyers here and there. But this barrel with 15 shots down pipe, I'm still able to hold the barrel. Now it is very hot still. I would consider that thing hot enough to where it definitely needs to cool down, and it is obviously pretty hot out here. It's Arizona desert. It's 115 degrees out here. So the velocities, they're sitting around 3,000 feet a second, and typically on a PRS match or stage, you're looking at 10 rounds, maybe 12 rounds max, and obviously a little cool down time. So I think this velocity at 2,950 feet a second is pretty ideal for the 6mm Creedmoor. Definitely will prolong the barrel life. So throughout the week, me and Little Hawk were basically testing this Varget load, comparing it to the Hodgdon 4350 load to see if there's any kind of performance difference and recoil mitigation. We tried this in a few different rifles like this TC Compass, which this TC Compass produces some pretty amazing results. Single digit SDs with the Hodgdon 4350 load. And as far as recoil, we tried this on positional shots, 710 yards as well as 1,000 yards, and pretty much determined that the recoil is very slight difference, if any. In my opinion, I could actually feel a very slight impulse less using the Varget load. I could be back on target a little bit faster, but it's very, very slight difference. It really depends on the rifle and how you set it up. Now, recoil can be mitigated by a few ways. Obviously, downloading the load of the cartridge is one of the ways. However, it does increase the chances of getting higher SDs as well as flyers. From experience, extruded powder tends to perform the best when it's near max case fill, around 95%. Fortunately enough, with Varget in the 6mm Creedmoor with 80% case fill, that didn't really affect it at all. So that's the reason why these cartridges like the 6GT, the BRs, the Dashers, the XCs, all of that optimize the case capacity for the powder to get that optimized case fill of 95% or so. Another option to reduce recoil is to increase the weight of the rifle and putting weights on the rifle where it helps balance it out. This is why you see a lot of PRS competitors shooting 18 to 30 pound rifles to pretty much put more mass and reduce the inertia effect of a fired round. Now, obviously there is a trade-off, and that's basically you're going to be manipulating now a very heavy rifle, and there are stages out there in PRS matches which require you to do offhand shots or unsupported positions, and putting that much weight out there is going to pretty much make you wobble around. So another option to mitigate recoil is choosing the correct muzzle brake for the caliber and your rifle setup. And a lot of folks don't understand, but a muzzle brake cannot do its job if it doesn't have enough gases. So if you download the load of your cartridge, you're obviously not going to have enough gases expelling out of the ports of the actual muzzle brake, thus reducing its effectiveness. So the question may arise, what type of muzzle brake should I use and how many ports? Now that question would be pretty hard to generalize. And in my suggestion, I would recommend you taking your camera phone and filming it from the side of your actual rifle in slow-mo, trying to see exactly what your barrel is doing. Do you see it hopping back and forth? Do you see a lot of vibration? All of that is pretty much inflicted by the muzzle brake that you have. You want a straight back push, if any kind of recoil at all. Like I said, the type of muzzle brake is really determined on how your rifle is set up. Now, as far as the type of muzzle brake, obviously I prefer side ports with a couple of vertical ports. I do like the API Gen 3 Fat Bastard, and I am testing out this Hubert Concepts, this weird kind of a square style muzzle brake. I'll do a review on that pretty shortly. Like I said, it really helps determine the type of muzzle brake that you have if it's tuned for your rifle. Having too many ports just basically does nothing for you other than looks, and having too little ports is basically just going to reduce the effectiveness of the muzzle brake. I typically choose between a 3 to a 4 port. If I'm shooting, for instance, a very gassy cartridge like a 25 Creedmoor, I will then go to like a 6 port, but that's really determined again how the rifle's set up. So in conclusion, and also in my opinion, the 6mm Creedmoor cartridge is already a very, very light recoiling round. Now, is there much of a performance gain going with these mid-size 6mm cartridges, sacrificing velocity just to get that little bit of an edge of reduced recoil? Honestly, in my opinion, I don't really think so. Having to deal with basically not having manufactured ammunition support, having to find components is hard, is already hard as of today's economy. And the 6mm Creedmoor still does exactly the same thing that majority of these other cartridges can do, with basically having availability on ammunition, components, and whatnot. I think there's better money spent out in the range learning how to build positions on barricades and different positional shots, learning what you and your rifle are capable of doing, and having the ammunition available to you is definitely going to help you out. So some of the best advice that I got from top competitors is this: spend less time behind the reloading bench and more time downrange learning what you and your rifle can do. That includes 100-yard load development. I see this all the time, a lot of YouTube channels with folks trying to get that quarter-inch group, spending all this time load developing and burning out a barrel. Again, a majority of these 6mm cartridges are barrel burners, and typically you'll see 1,500 to 2,000 rounds. And again, the more shots you put down pipe, the more you're going to reduce the barrel life, and you're going to basically be starting the whole process over again. Now, if you're getting into this PRS game and you got all these guys jumping on the bandwagon, enticing you to get into a certain caliber, the question I would ask yourself is, can you get components, and how readily available are they? Are you willing to reload 100 to 200 rounds for a match? And if not, maybe you should choose a different caliber. Other than that, reloading, keep it simple. There's no reason why we should be chasing sub quarter-inch groups, though it is nice, but spending less time behind the 100-yard line is going to, for one, keep more barrel life for you to practice, and two, the data that you collected on the barrel is eventually going to have to be redone anyway. So the more time you spend downrange learning how to build positional shots is going to make you a better shooter. Honestly, a 3/4 MOA group is going to be sufficient for competing at the top level. Honestly, a lot of folks, majority of folks actually, over 90% of folks can't even hold an MOA group in a positional shot at long range. So this will conclude today's video. If you guys have any questions, comment below. If you guys have load data questions, I'll do my best to answer those as safely as I can. Obviously, always, go with the safest route, and that's going to be work up the loads yourself. Other than that, if you got questions on rifle builds, choices, I could give you my experience. Like I said, comment below. I'll do my best to answer. You guys stay safe, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.